Hi, this is Rob Birnie, and you're listening to Birnie's In here at Planet Rock. And for the next hour, I'm going to be talking to two members of a hugely successful British band. Their first album came out 40 years ago. And this month, they're bringing out a new box set that chronicles their live work from over the years. Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford from Genesis, my guests tonight. Before I talk to them, though, let's hear them in action. This is a track from one of the albums that's been remastered for the live box set. From 73's Genesis Live, this is Watcher of the Skies. Recorded in 73, that's Watcher of the Skies from the first Genesis live album. And my guests on Birnie's In tonight at Planet Rock, Mike Rutherford and Tony Banks from Genesis. Welcome to Planet Rock.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
I thought we'd start, maybe take the albums that are in the box set kind of chronologically, because they give quite a good snapshot of the band at different points in your career. So the first album that's on there is Genesis Live.
Genesis Live was originally was recorded as a radio show, and we really almost did it under the condition that it wasn't going to be used as an album. And the other problem we had with that first album was that the standout track live was a song called Supper's Ready, obviously, which was about half an album. And having just done the album Foxtrot, we felt we couldn't put that on this album. So it's kind of a funny album because it's missing the best track, and we were never very happy with it really. But we sort of thought, well, obviously when you're doing this, we went back to it and remixed it as well as we could. I think some of the tracks sound okay, but it was definitely the album the album that hasn't been heard before is a great improvement on that.
And although that was your first live album to be released, I mean, at the time you'd been together as a band 4 or 5 years before that. What was touring like in the what would you remember from the very, very early shows of Genesis?
Well, I think, in a funny way, we had a lucky situation. We had a great record label, Charisma, who gave us the chance to make 2 or 3 albums that all sold about the same, not very much, but go on the road and kind of learn our skill as a live band with Peter out front. And I think that was an important part of our career. The pressure on bands now to sort of deliver hit albums or success straight away is huge. Whereas in our day, we were able to go out for 3 or 4 years and kind of learn our craft, learn how to play live better, what songs worked, running orders. So I think in a way it was a very important time of our sort of makeup.
And was it the traditional everyone piles into a transit van up and down the M1? Is it that kind of thing?
Well, it really was, actually. Yes, it's a bit boring, but that's what it was. And we used to play very variable audiences. I mean, sometimes with the 2, I think, was our record lowest. Mistral Beckenham, it was a club. We often used to play in these places. It would be a kind of a dance place, and in order to sort of try and expand their repertoire a bit, they'd have a sort of progressive blues night on a Monday night, and of course nobody came at all, and there were just 2 girls at the back of the room, and we introduced ourselves to them because it was just crazy. I mean, they come to have a bit of entertainment. We weren't what they wanted at all, I promise you. They didn't want to hear sort of 15-minute songs where the tempo changed all the time. So we had a bit of that, and you did a lot of supporting, and I think that it was through that you kind of built up a thing. I mean, one time we used to go, for example, there was a Farks club in Southall, which was quite a big one for us in the early days. And we went there and we supported Mott the Hoople, who are a good band and really some nice people and everything. And we got on well with the crowd and everything. And then a month later we went back as headliners. And that was very much what happened. It's a small club, we're talking about 100, 200 people. But it was, that's how we built up a following. And we learned how to learned our craft through that.
I think when you listen to Genesis live, I think the mental image you get is obviously a striking image of Peter Gabriel with the costumes. And how early on did the theatricals come into the live performances?
Well, in a way, it originally started actually purely by Peter's point of view, because in those days the PA was so bad you couldn't hear the words. So no one knew what Peter was singing. So by kind of acting out in terms of characters, a bit of costume, a bit of sort of a mask and a face here, he tried to explain to the crowd what the songs were about. That's how the props really started. And then the cover of this album, you see, is actually a great example of value for money, because we bought a gauze curtain, white gauze curtain behind the band and hid all the speakers. we bought 10 ultraviolet lights. So for £300, you had the most amazing-looking stage set. So that just sort of changed the way the band appeared, I think, to the audience. Also,
the Genesis music, particularly in those early days, a lot of the stuff was instrumental. So we had to sort of find something to do during that. And quite often you go off stage, but then you had time to change and come back in with something a bit more exciting. It was a lot of fun doing all that. I mean, it was, yeah.
Did either of you ever harbour ambitions to be the front man, or were you more kind of
Look
happy?
at me. Do you think I didn't know? No, I mean, playing live, I mean, is not my sort of natural thing, really, and I've always been very, very lucky and very happy to have people really, 95% of the crowd's attention really is on the singer. I mean, which it should be, really. I mean, I always feel my job is just to try and make the singer sound good, if they like the singer.
You need, first of all, we've forgotten, you need a good voice.
Yeah, you do.
Let's start with that, and that counts you and me out big time.
What? Speak for yourself.
We're in the same
Speak
camp,
Around about the same time, one of the albums that's on the box set was recorded at the Rainbow in '73. The bulk of that's from Selling England by the Pound. And that's one of the albums on this box set that's been mixed in surround sound.
It just sounds great. If you've got a system that can play it, a lot of people have cinema systems at home now, and so they've got the ability with their DVDs to put a record in. Sometimes need a little bit of a tweaking, but it sounds... it does sound great, and you can really separate out all the instruments, and a lot of layered stuff. And for live, obviously, you can just sort of generally try to recreate that sort of live sound as much as anything else, which is really really worth doing, I think.
I had listened to one of the 5.1 mixes this week, and it seems to really work particularly well for live albums. It seems very well suited to it.
Well, I suppose the other things, because when you hear an album, it's just a recorded album, it's just stereo. But when you go to a concert, you've got the sound, the room all around you. So, in a sense, the 5.1 mixes ideally can kind of recreate that feeling that you're in a room.
You just need somebody chucking a pint of lager down the back of your neck.
Someone going, rubbish, get off.
When it comes to Seconds Out, which originally came out in '77, that was the first live album that you did with Phil Collins. How is Phil, by the way? A lot of people listening will have heard the news that he's not drumming.
Not at the moment. I mean, he had a bit of chat. I saw him last Tuesday, this Tuesday, at the Prince's Trust sort of gathering at Highgrove. Yeah, he's in quite good spirits, actually. He's had an operation to release a trapped nerve in his back, and at the moment his snare drum hand can't really grip properly. But I'm sure these things will pass. He can still sing. But playing some of those right now, playing complicated drums is impossible. I think playing easy drums is hard enough anyway. But he's having fun.
First album, Seconds Out, was the first one with Phil up front. So one of the interesting things about the Seconds Out album is you've got material on there that Phil was involved in the writing of, and then of course he sings some of the older songs that Peter Gabriel was singing, and his voice seems to fit the older material really well. And it surprises me that I heard. Did you try out 400 singers or something? I
think for a lot of reasons we didn't think Phil would. We didn't think Phil would want to do it. I mean, he was so much a drummer in those days that the idea of him singing was sort of unlikely. And then even when he did the album, we didn't think he'd want to do it live for the same reason, really. And the idea that he was happy to have another drummer behind him doing some of the drumming. So that's the reason why it took so long. I mean, I think it seems obvious now. And I think one of the reasons is his voice sounds natural. Is when he did do quite a lot of singing with Peter on the early albums. And I think it just people. The other thing is he'd obviously heard Pete singing it lots of times, and it came natural to sing in a certain kind of way. Although I think you hear it now and it sounds more different. At the time, everyone said he sounds just like Peter. You hear it now, it sounds very different to me, I think. But it's certainly we were very lucky. It was a very easy transition.
When it comes to Three Sides Live, which originally came out in '82, I mean, we talked a little bit about the theatricals, the costumes that Peter especially was using early on. Obviously, as your venues that you're playing at get bigger and bigger, whether your lead singer is dressed up as Britannia or an old man, it doesn't quite cut it in a larger venue as it would make an impression in a smaller one. So obviously, light shows get bigger, and this is something you've always been at the forefront of, I think. I mean, I know nothing about stage lights and things, but I know there's the varilight system.
Yeah, I mean, there's a nice story there, because in fact, we've always been trying to find something not so much bigger and better, but a bit different, something new for each tour. And the varilights came about, which is, for those that don't know, is basically the original light that changed colour and moved. Because prior to that, you wanted 10 reds, you had to have 10 lamps, and 10 blues. And originally it was going to be a thing that a Dallas sound company we worked together with to develop it. We met it just for one tour, They designed this fantastic light that actually moved and changed colour. And the first 5 years we were the guinea pigs. The first tour, these lights would blow up, and smoke, or they just rotate all day long, But obviously we decided it's more than just a one-off tour for us, and we kind of worked and developed it, and it became the industry standard in a way.
It seems it's not that long ago, really. I mean, it's early 80s, isn't it? It seems quite strange that wasn't around.
I know people have become such the norm. As Mike said, this idea of having to have separate colours for each light was quite a thing, really. I mean, and no movement. I think that was the thing we hadn't quite anticipated to such an extent. We wanted the light and the ability to sort of focus each light sort of with ease from the stage, rather than having to, to do all this sort of poking and stuff that you had to do before. But what we hadn't really realised was the way the computers obviously could control the whole thing, so you could go from one preset to another. And that was, of course, just such a stunning effect. You could just do simple things like making all the lights change from red to green. Eyes had never focused on this before, and so although it seems very obvious now, we went on stage with this setup, and I think just stunned people. They thought, what has happened? Because you just could never do that before. You had 150 lights red, 150 lights green, and then they'd suddenly all go swing up madly like this. And you could get such fantastic effects. And it was more the sort of almost the architectural quality of the lights that was the most striking thing in the early days, I think. We'd originally just seen it as a way of kind of almost having theatrical lighting on stage, so you could really pick out different people, and then you could move lights to a different position and pick out a person in a different spot and all that. But they delivered far more than we originally thought they would. So, and then, of course, everybody wanted them, and so, they got hired out to everybody, and... So that's it. As you said, it's become the industry standard, really, in many ways.
You're right, exactly. This era was when it sort of first appeared, and rather than being regular lighting, it was a huge special effect. I'd never seen it before, So in a sense, on these first couple of tours around this album, the light show was incredibly original. Obviously, after a while, you can only do so much, Once it's been done, it's been done. But it was, and for us, it's always been quite. And Phil was not like Peter in terms of costumes and stuff. A great frontman and much more direct contact with the audience, but the biggest show around him worked very well.
It's a lovely quote. I don't know whether it's true, but it's attributed to you, Mike. That says that apparently it was an early demo of the Varilight system, and when you'd seen this, apparently you said, "I expected the colour change, but by Jove, I didn't know it was going to move."
True, actually. Did I say by Jove? I sound like sort of Captain Pugwash. Actually, it's true. We didn't actually ask. We didn't ask for the movement, and by Jove, were we lucky?
Well, this is Birnie's In by Jove here at Planet Rock, and we'll have something from the new Genesis live box set next, and then more from Mike and Tony. Turning it on again from the Genesis live album, The Way We Walk. My guests on Birnie's In tonight, Mike Rutherford and Tony Banks from Genesis. And I suppose, was that tricky when you got back together for the 2007 live shows? I imagine it's quite hard picking a set list, trying to kind of keep, fans of the proggier stuff, and then there'll be other fans who prefer the kind of shorter, poppier things. Was it quite hard putting it together?
Well, that tour actually wasn't that hard. I'll tell you why it was easier, because normally every tour prior to the 2007 one, we've had a new album, so that means there's sort of 6 or 7 new songs, or at least 6 new songs to fit in. So this time round, those songs weren't there, so we kind of gained 40 minutes of what would have been new stuff. So in a sense, no, it wasn't too bad, because there are certain key songs that you need to play and you want to play, certain short songs and long songs. I would say 3/4 of it or more was sort of fell into place, and we tried to be a little bit different.
Well, there's a few things we wanted to try. I was quite keen. I always felt our most impressive opening, in many ways, was the opening to Duke. But we decided, so we used that obviously to open the show, but we didn't actually use the whole song. Perhaps we didn't feel the whole song stood up quite as well as but that introduction was always great, just made you sit up, and it's just so optimistic, and it was impressive, something about the band play as orchestra, what I mean? I always really thought that was a very, very good moment. So, those little bits, we wanted to do that. There's a few things we wanted to try. I was very keen to do some old song we hadn't done for a long time, and having gone through a few suggestions, we ended up with Ripples. And that proved to be one of the most popular things in the show, which was interesting for us, really, because it's a song we love, but never quite sure, I haven't really played it on stage for years, and we were very gratified with that. But it's a you've got so much music, you're never going to please everybody, and we wanted to make something. We had some of the more, we wanted to go a little further back than we had done some of the more complicated earlier stuff, and with a massive medley of stuff from the 70s, all in one song. Really, it was kind of ghetto. So felt that if people didn't like that, could go and have a pee. And then what we found actually was during the long big solo, most of the girls went down and had a pee, and then after that played "Hold on My Heart," and all the guys went down and had a pee. So you're trying to cater for everybody, so that everyone has a bathroom break. It's important to us.
It's a good way of working it. Say if you went on tour next year, and obviously at that stage where you could afford to do pretty much anything on stage that you could dream up as far as a spectacle goes. But I imagine there's a fine line between an impressive set to it being completely over the top and distracting from what you're actually doing.
I think every tour we've done, especially even the last tour, we've had great effects that we prepared for the show, couldn't find the right place to use them, so we didn't. I mean, not the best ones, but really key moments. We thought, when can we use that? We just couldn't find the right place for it to work. It's so important that the right thing happens at the right time, and then it works really strongly, I think. But in a sense, you've got to remember that we're talking about. I think your hand is if you're playing outdoor stadiums, I think your hand is slightly tied. You need some kind of a show. If you're playing indoors, you can get away with a lot less. There was always the thought of maybe just doing some smaller theatres or even just some arenas with a few lights and the back line. But I think outdoors, it's such an event, it has to have a bit of spectacle to it.
I watched not so long ago, is it Come Rain or Shine, which was the film surrounding the preparations for the 2007 shows. And there's a nice bit in it where you're at the planning stage. And it is the kind of dreaming up what's going to happen. And I think there was some idea to put you all in a pod that would then move around. Yeah. I think until Tony said...
So I suffer from vertigo. Yeah. Well, when you get designers in to help you, you kind of got to let them have a bit of free rein. They're always going to come up with things like this. They're desperate for it, and he'll find somebody who'll do that. He probably has already, I should think. It's like architects. They've always got this dream house they want to build, and you have to let them say yeah, and then you come back and say no, what we really want is just sort of 2 up, 2 down and things. And so it was a bit like that, but it was a bit funny because I thought, what point do I say I'm never going to do this, even though I wouldn't do it even if I could do it, almost, because it was not Genesis. I don't think it was Genesis anyhow, but it was also quite impossible. So it was a good excuse to sort of knock it on the head at that point. But you do get, you get suggestions. I mean, you have to be able to, when you get people in, particularly, because we have very strong ideas, particularly Mike and I, about how we want the thing to look and everything. And so you want to get people who thinking along the same lines. And you have to be able to say, no, I think that's rubbish, that's no good, And you try to get people that sort of, you feel some sort of sympathy with you to work for you, and then it works the best.
And actually, what you can't do is 5 years down the line when some young band or new bands come up with this fantastic pod idea, you can't tell them that was in the cupboard, X years ago. I remember Hypnosis, who did a lot of artwork covers for us, did the Floyd covers, Poe and Storm. 2 of their ideas we threw out. One was the Zeppelin album, with the beacon thing. One was 10cc
album
album,
the map over the face, which they kept trying to sell us. Said, no, we don't like that one. And of course, you have a good idea. They're not going to let it rest. Hypnosis was great, isn't it?
I'm sure everyone listening to this at the moment will have, at some point in their life, fantasised about the idea of getting up on stage in front of tens of thousands of adoring fans and
taking all their clothes off.
And then taking all their clothes off.
All right.
And I mean, like personally, I'd love the idea of doing the kind of walk from the dressing room to the backstage bit, and you can hear the crowd outside. I mean, it must be very, very cool.
That's not the good bit. The walk from the backstage to the back of the stage is when you hear this sort of rumbling outside. You look around you, there's only 5 of you, and you think, where are the rest? You feel very insignificant. Once you walk on stage and the crowd roar, then you feel... You kind of wake up and you feel in a better position. But just the backstage, you often feel like there's 70,000 of them. There's only 5 of us. They're going to win,
Is it something that... I presume you can't get complacent about something like that. It must be something that still affects you when it happens.
Well, I'm not primarily in it for that, really. It's always the writing the music, and that's the real thrill for me, is when the music's created is a great thrill. And when you're on stage and you're actually playing it to an audience, and particularly when you get a response, I mean, that's the thrill for me. Just being in front of people. I had no desire ever to be sort of famous or on stage or anything like that, But the music and to sort of reach people with the music is just something that gives me a lot of excitement. So that's kind of why I do it. But having said all that, obviously there is something about going in front of a lot of people and doing this. And when it works, it is fantastic. But of course, when it doesn't, you get your equipment starts breaking down and you're in front of sort of 50,000 people and suddenly your keyboard suddenly goes, oh, cool, what am I going to do? Which we had a few times on that tour purely because of the rain, and the poor stuff just couldn't take it. It was getting wet all the time, and this is sophisticated electronic gear, and you didn't feel too good, I have to say. There was one show in particular I just remember I just wanted to die, you know.
And I suppose that we were talking about the sets and the light shows and everything. I suppose the fact that everything is so synced up with the music that if something does go wrong, it'll probably go pretty wrong.
Well, actually, a lot of ours isn't, fun enough. I mean, parts are. I know what you're saying. A lot of bands do it with click tracks. A lot of our songs, large sections are actually improvised a bit, so they can be 4 bars or 10 bars longer one night. So there's someone has to actually do it manually. But you've learned. I've learned everything. One good thing you've learned in life is being on tour is that actually, you know, it's 5:30 in the afternoon. Nothing's working. There's no power. Everything's gone down. You know, there won't be a show. But you know, by 8:30 that night, it'll happen. Maybe somebody's not working, but you learn. It's a good test in life to deal with stress. Actually, somehow it'll all be okay. It'll go ahead, and no one will get hurt.
This is Planet Rock, talking to Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford from Genesis tonight. Next song I'll play you on Birnie's In is one of the extra tracks, one of the new bonus tracks that appears on the new Genesis live box set. That's the Chamber of 32 Doors. It's one of the extra tracks, bonus tracks on the new Genesis live box set. That was recorded in LA in 75. And I suppose the kind of theme we've been talking about tonight, it's talking about live music quite a lot. Do you go to many gigs yourselves? Or I suppose, is it kind of a Bossman's holiday?
I think it's. I think people fall into two camps in this in the business. I think if you are a performing musician and made your career like I have, I think for some people, you know, just don't have terrific amount of interest. I think it spoils it for you as a punter, really does. You know, I know there are other people who actually, you know, who go the opposite way and are very into it and stuff. I know Pete Townsend always says he's always listening to stuff all the time and everything. I just can't do that. I think it all spoils it for me. I think partly it's because I think sometimes if you think, I mean, this sounds stupid really, but sometimes you go to see a concert and if it's bad, well, it's bad and you don't enjoy it. And if it's good, you don't like it because they're doing too well and then you're doing better than you, you know. It's a curious thing. You don't go there as a sort of just sit back, and I find it quite difficult to sit back and just sort of take it like that. And so I have to say I don't go and see many concerts. But having said that, I've seen quite a few that I've enjoyed, but I think I like it better when I don't, you know, when the band is, I don't know, it's a totally different kind of group or something, and then I think I enjoy it more.
How about yourself, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I often forget to I often mean to do it, and then forget they've gone, they're past the town, they're back in America. I don't go a lot. When I do go, I go pretty much as the punter. I don't really analyse it too much. I went to and played the charity show last weekend at the O2 for Laura Robbins, music therapy. And my son was organising it, so I had no choice but to play in the house band some of the songs. But I watched a lot of other artists. You know, David Gray was on, Razorlight, Joss Stone, and actually and Robert Plant, with his Moroccan sort of sound, playing Zeppelin songs. I really enjoyed it. Plus, also, there were only 3 songs per person. Maybe that's the way forward. None of this 2.5-hour shows.
We're saying this is like the old days used to be. The old concerts used to be. You know, you'd have kind of like Jimi Hendrix, followed by the Walker Brothers, folled by the Small Faces, you know, followed by... I mean, it just...
Yes.
Yeah, very bizarre kind of shows. And I don't know what that was like as an audience member, because I never went to those kind of shows, but it sounded quite intriguing.
I'm sure, didn't Hendrix support the Monkees? I think that was...
Quite likely, yeah.
I'm sure, yeah.
That'd be an interesting bill. What about over the years? Is you know, maybe when you used to go to more, I mean, is any performers that you've seen that you just thought, wow, that's how you do the live thing?
Well, I think in the early days we were very impressed when we saw... There was a group we used to play with a bit, because on the same label as us was Rare Bird. And, you know, there was one time we played at the Marquee with them. And I think we actually came off stage almost feeling that they were too good, that we couldn't do as good as that. Probably the only time we really ever felt that, that kind of... It sort of, to some extent, sapped your confidence, but it was just amazing, and you felt we'd never get as good as that. So yes, you learn quite a bit from these different people. I think you watch how they do a show, and that was just purely for music and vocal. There was nothing extra to it, really, was there? No, it was, but it was incredibly exciting. So you know, I mean, before I was kind of, you know, before I started playing a group, I mean, I had a lot of people I saw I liked. I was in university at Brighton for a while, and we used to go to, there's a club in the sort of in the middle of the town we used to go to. It was just sort of a small room really. Then I saw groups like sort of Jethro Tull, Liverpool scene, and people like that. And I really enjoyed everything. It was great. It was just fantastic fun just to sort of see these people up in front of you, and here I went. So I was a fan, very much a fan. It was only after we started playing live ourselves that I sort of slightly lost interest in the live show.
How many times per week still in 2009 do you get asked, would you do anything again with Peter and Steve Hackett?
Depends on the day. And you have to ask this question, which is fine. I mean, and we always give the same answer, that we have no plans to do anything, but we never rule out anything at all, I think we're more dependent really on well, obviously Peter, what he might want to do. At one point there was a possibility of doing it, but it kind of went by the wayside. And with Phil, obviously, with his sort of physical problems at the moment, I think that rules all that out. But we never say no, and you don't know what happens really. So Mike and I'm sure we'd, if we were still walking, we'd probably be up for it.
Well,
I know Steve is always quite keen on doing something.
There's some big birthdays coming
up.
Well,
they're all big ones coming up, aren't they? Soon? Big birthday parties, yeah. So that's the answer to that question.
Well, thank you for answering it.
I will answer it.
That's to be done. Plans for the future? Anything kind of up in the air that we should know about?
Yeah, I've got two things on the bottom. One is I'm working towards doing another kind of classical album that I did one about 3 or 4 years ago, which was a lot of fun. And having done that one, I feel I could do something, sort of perhaps better because of what I've learnt from the past, although the music, who knows whether it'll be better or worse, I don't know. And the other thing I've done is actually, since we've been doing all this remastering and reworking, I decided I'd go back to my first solo album, A Curious Feeling, which came out in 1979. And we found that albums from that period we'd done with the Genesis albums, just remixing and stuff, had made them sound an awful lot better. And this is an album which I didn't think sounded quite as good as the Genesis albums at the time anyhow, so I wanted to go back to it and fiddle about with it and see what it was like. And I really was so pleasantly surprised with what was on the tape was great, and just putting it together again, how I wanted it, makes it sound really good. And although I can't say that the world is perhaps waiting with bated breath for a re-release of an album of mine that I released in 1979, it's something I really enjoy, so I play it quite a bit, and it's so I'm happy. But it is coming out next month, so anyone else who's interested, it's going to be there.
At the moment I'm working kind of loosely on a sort of mechanics type project. I say that because I've sort of gone back to where I first started. The first album we did, I wrote the songs, recorded them, and then I thought, who the hell's going to sing them? There were 4 or 5 singers on the first album. So I'm going back to write some songs at the moment, co-writing actually, for a project, and I might even have sort of 2 or 3 different voices on this. Not with Paul. Paul Carrick does his solo career now and is very active doing his touring and stuff, but there seems to be a sound there. I'm finding in the writing, even with just me singing bits, there's a sort of sound to the way I write or co-write. And I've gone a bit braver again, I think, actually. I'm quite enjoying it. So I'm going in the studio next couple of weeks' time to start laying some track down and just see where this journey takes me.
If we could, I thought we'd maybe play out. We'll finish off with a live track from the box set. Bearing in mind, if you choose Supper's Ready, we'll have to do some serious editing on the speech bit.
Well, that'd probably be good, actually. So please play Supper's Ready. Play it twice. It's always a difficult thing when you ask us which track we want to go out with, because, obviously there are longer songs and shorter songs. So I don't know, really.
Not too long a song, because it's sort of...
It depends what sort of era you want. What era do you want?
What do you choose?
What you choose? Well, choose as long
as
it's not too ordinary.
Dodo.
Hey, that's a different one. Yeah, Dodo,
Yeah,
why not?
Sure.
We like Dodo.
I haven't heard that for about 25 years. Yeah.
Tony Banks, Mike Rutherford, thank you for coming into Planet Rock. Nice to talk to you.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Pleasure.
That was Dodo, taken from the 3 Sides Live album, which is one of the live albums that's been remastered and appears on the new Genesis live box set. Thank you very much to Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford from Genesis for being my guests tonight on Birnie's Inn here at Planet Rock.